Well, hello, welcome to another course vlog, looking at Lake Olmstead Augusta Classic 2022 layout, looking at some different pin positions, just give you a preview of what the course looks like. Going to be keeping a little bit of score. Hole 1, par 3, 302 feet, open tee shot, guarded green. That's going to be a theme throughout the course. You're going to want to play a backhand or forehand to the two most apparent gaps. I'm going to go with a FD just to try to flip something up. You want like a stand-up hyzer. Definitely don't want something to peel over. There's OB on the left side. You see that green on the right side, green fence all along. The left side is certainly the most open side, but you do need the low skipper. This grass doesn't give a ton of skips, especially since it slopes back uphill. You do have a sloped green. It slopes a little more drastically than it looks from the camera. You see putts landing on hyzer can roll a good more distance than usual. Really cool sign. Usually gets hit a couple times throughout the round. You do have OB long, but guarded by a wall. Moving on hole 2, par 4, 445 feet. You have an island green that's signified by the road. Usually people either lay up short or they cross in one, which is very doable. You have an easier approach that way because it is guarded for the approach if you don't go in one. I try to throw a strike in one, turn something over. This hole is very wind dependent. If it's windy, a layup is going to be the play, unless you have a really far forehand with an overstable disc or a very trusty neutral disc. My last shot here, I try and FD. I try to have a pushing hyzer over the green fence with the lights and just kind of spike it into the field. I think this might be the drop zone if you go OB. I know it's the junior pad at least, but practice it either way to see what a bogey would feel like. If I had to take one, hopefully it'll be a birdie. Hole 3, par 3, 368 feet. You have a downhill tee shot. Really pretty hole. Into another guarded green, but this tricky green slopes off the back of the basket. And so if you land something, you want to land it short and let it skip up. If you land by the basket and get through your tee shot, you will end up skipping pretty far. Usually there is a wind coming off the lake. Most of the times it is left to right. So your shots that come out flat will usually hold up and finish late. That's a good play with the wind. I threw an MD4, a mid-range, that didn't have much skip. Trying to control that speed. Still gives me a putt. Do want to be careful on your putt too, because anything hyzer will end up rolling if you airmail it. Which I don't show you, but I just cage all of my putts except my mid-range. Hole 4 is a new pin position. Par 3, 268 feet. Usually it's tucked up to the right after the at the left, after the V tree. But now it's a straight tunnel shot. You have low ceiling and danger on the right. It's OB on the road. So I'm trying to push either just a hyzer into the ground and let it skip up there straight. But I end up airing this buzz out a little too much, and it ends up finding some low branches. And this putt's about 28 feet, so close to the circle's edge. Uphill putt. Par 5, hole 5, par 3, 401 feet. You have a gap off the tee that you want to navigate, probably like a 6-foot gap, low ceiling as well. And you want it to reach this pin, play slightly uphill, though the fairway dips down and comes back up. So you throw a forehand or backhand. Really just want to, for my skill level, you just want to hit the gap and see where you end up. If you end up by the basket, great. If not, then you have an approach. Throw a backhand and a forehand just to show that pretty much how wide this first gap is. End up throwing for my FD, my first shot, which was a backhand that hit some trees. End up throwing a little too high. There's a low ceiling. Approaching the green, and right there is about 40 feet. So still a makeable putt if you actually get some air under it. Really a bonus birdie to get. Hole 6, par 3, 343 feet. Got a downhill tee shot. Tight gap to navigate. But what's really tricky about this hole, in my opinion, is the green. Even a good tee shot could end up rolling away. So you want to control your angle on your disc. Put something that fights wind, because it's usually pretty windy on this hole. I go with the backhand buzz, hoping it flips up flat and lands flat, but usually the hillside can just grab it and take it down to the hillside, the ditch, which it did, and that's fine. You just want to be careful on your putt not to hit middle and roll away. So you either airball it or put it in, right? This is probably about 40 feet uphill putt. Didn't know if it was obvious, but road and sidewalk are both OB. Hole 7, par 3, 277. You have water on the left and OB sidewalk on the right. You have kind of a green filled with roots, and so any tee shot, ground play is going to be very questionable. Missed my tee shot, just forehanded something short. It is to the right, and just had a layup for a par. Hole 8, this is in the par 4 position, so you will see a short position, but you want to navigate this gap off the tee, and then there is a secondary gap that you kind of want to get through to get to your landing zone. That right there is a short position that you see, and the long position, you want to navigate this hillside, either a low left gap or a pushing right moving shot, right to left moving shot that settles before that hillside. You can go roller off the tee. That is definitely a viable play, especially to get around that low ceiling. Or you can just pump a backhand or forehand through the middle gap. And that's a pretty good landing zone right there by that tree, but it does give you a tricky approach shot. I think that is where you're going to make your money. That hits the tree and just ends up for being 100 feet away. Pretty parked for the short pin though. You will see me also throw a backhand to try to navigate, because there is either navigating that left-hand side or punching something a little further right that kind of pops up straight and lands flat. That's kind of what you want to do if you do choose to go over the hill and back down. Very tricky green though, slopes towards OB, and that approach right there does find out of bounds. The OB close to the basket, it's about circle's edge, maybe a little further, but you have a uphill putt, low ceiling though, but it's definitely something you can save your par if you end up going OB on your second shot. Hole 9, par 3 to close out the front 9, 309 feet. You have a very uphill tee shot, but simple. Nothing guarding the green. It's just navigating a blind tee shot. Usually people go forehand hyzer. You should either go to left or right of this pole and spike down. You do have OB on the right side, but it is give you plenty of room to work with. I actually end up right before the OB without skips and rolls. And so that's how much width you do have, and you're able to land something relatively close to the green, going to the right. Jose is going to go to the left of the pole. If you go to the left, it does take some pretty massive distance if you want to swing it wider around, or either hug that pole and bring it into play. This is about a 35-footer that never makes it to the basket. Green does slope from right to left down below. This is an uphill putt, not that uphill, but That tree is a good marker. If you land it by that tree, you're really close to the basket. Hole 10, par 3, 279 to kick off the back 9. Open tee shot. The only thing guarding the green are these 2 trees and sewer cap. And you want to land it short because this hillside drops off into what usually plays as OB, and I'm assuming will play as OB before the creek. So you want to pump out hyzer and give it some credit because even this shot right here lands on the flat but skips out of bounds. It kind of takes 2 skips before it kind of trickles down and rolls. And then you love this putt. Sorry to put that in your mind, but I'm putting from what an old out of bounds line was painted. Hole 4, hole 11, par 4 position, 464 feet. This is a new pin placement. Usually it's tucked up to the right over here in the cove, but you want to navigate the out of bounds sidewalk on the left to set you up for a straight or forehand hyzer to this basket, right hand forehand hyzer to this basket. So I try to throw a turnover that does a turnover, but to that spot's about where I trickle OB is about 280 feet. So you can easily throw a forehand and get there, throw something dumpy, or you can cut off a little more distance. You can hug that that right side brush and get you a little more distance. But other than that, it's a pretty simple approach. It does narrow off to about 15 feet circle around the basket at the tightest point. But you definitely want to make your putts as well. Really cool pin placement. Really excited to play this. Very tempting. Not super eagleable for my arm. Hole 12 is a par 3, 256 feet. Probably the most must get on this hole as a par 3, especially for a backhand dominant player. You want to swing the hyzer and navigate the first initial tree that's right before the basket. If you land at the base of the tree, you're going to be able to skip up into about 20 feet or shorter. And that was my second shot. My first shot did end up close to the out of bounds, but it was not out of bounds. This is a downhill putt. Say it's pretty downhill. The basket's probably in line with my knee or my hip. That's how downhill it is. That's probably 22 feet away, so not too far from the OB. Hole 13 is a par 3, 368 feet. You want to navigate this first gap right here and swing it around this tree. There is a forehand over the road, depending on whether there's cars or not, depending on whether they put a Mando up or not. You want to not end up in this big tree on the right and end up where my buddy's putting. Usually I flip up a fairway driver and let it kind of skip at the tree to where it gets me an open putt. This one flips up a little too much. Usually there is a headwind at play on this hole coming off of the lake. If you do end up in this tree, you just usually have a backhand hyzer. It's a scary putt because the drop off does slope directly to OB. Hole 14, you have an initial gap on this par 3, 294 feet, but it is a tough hole because it is low ceiling, as you see right where we're slowing down, and the hill comes up pretty sharply. It is a uphill tee shot. You need to turn one over and let it work its way back out and skip up the hill. But if you hit a tree, obviously it's not going to work like that. Or there's this huge backhand hyzer that you can take. You want to push it almost pin high before it swings in, so it is kind of tough. So you do need a lot of distance to be able to get there because it is also uphill for the tee shot wise. That just make your approach, make your putt, and par. Hole 15, par 3, 341 feet. There's this initial gap and a guarded green. Initial gap is easy enough to hit. It is a downhill tee shot, but the second gap, in my opinion, is just pure luck. There's this crepe myrtle in the way for the backhand hyzer. You can't go forehand hyzer, forehand roller and miss it altogether, but that's pretty unpredictable. Could have worked out this play for my buddy Jose, but ended up 15 long. This right here is a backhand hyzer. there is a low ceiling, so you kind of want to punch the hyzer downhill, and just hopefully you get through the gap and let it skip up. I end up hitting a tree and rolling to about 40 feet of an uphill putt, which I make, and then make again. So it's gonna make twice and get a little honk from the crowd. Hole 16, par 3, 384 feet. In my opinion, this is a signature hole at Lake Olmstead at this point. You can either play to the left side of this tree where it's safe the entire way. If you want to push a forehand out this way, you really do want to push it out further than you think, because that water comes up closer when your disc skips and finishes. But you can also play this backhand hyzer. It's a pretty simple play if you have at least 360 feet worth of power. There is definitely a helping wind on this one, so I ease one up there. It's about a little outside circle's edge, I would say. Plays as an elevated if you're playing below this brick wall. We'll move on to hole 17. It's a par 3, 299 feet, but do not let that fool you. This pin placement is tucked up on the left side on the hill. Very treacherous green. You can land one by the basket, but that is just asking for a roll away. There's this flat spot about 30 feet from the basket downhill that you're able to land safe from rollaways. But all the grass is cut and it leads straight to the water. So you just want to pump a backhand hyzer, and hopefully there's not a right to left wind pushing down your hyzers. If not, this is what happens. I'm assuming it hit the hillside and just kind of dumped to about 60 feet of uphill putt. Honestly, a layup is not a bad play when you're putting uphill like this, unless you're definitely going to make it. Hole 18, par 3, 318 feet. You got a low ceiling off the tee to deal with. This is a new pin placement for the finishing hole. Usually it's right by the tree that you see on your right along this path, but now they've made it straight behind the middle tree. It's about 60, 80 feet behind the middle tree that you'll see in the distance. So you want to throw a forehand or a backhand that kind of lands and sits nicely on the hillside. This is a sloped green. It looks a lot more sloped in person than it is on camera. Like this right here is probably the same putt that I had on hole 17 uphill, but with a low ceiling. And that's it. Hope you enjoyed my preview. Check out the course.